I had to start a new video. Wasn't enough room on the last one. So on this one, I'm just going to pick up where we left off. We're in on the 21st, and I'm just going to show you what my chart looks like if I was trading the ES and how I would approach it using Jigsaw and the footprint. Okay, so the time is 6:35. The other trader entered short somewhere around 6:40. We went over the Jigsaw and the footprint, so let's move it up now. So going over the delta again, we see that we're primarily negative, possible bottom there. But when you look at the Jigsaw dome, you can clearly see that the sellers are here. We had some buyers here, but the thrust of the market is essentially down. If you look at the split volume. So we'll wait and see what happens here. And again, these crosses are very important. When you think you might have a bottom there because you have fewer sellers right here, look one step above and you might see that you're wrong. Right now you have 1600 on the buy side. But if you look over here on the Jigsaw dome, you can clearly see that sellers are more or less in control. The buyers are taking them off. Remember what I said about the snapshot here. And if you look at the sell side, you can see that you have a little bit of stacking there. Well, not that big of a deal. It's still kind of floundering around. Now remember what I said on the calculation of the cumulative delta versus the delta. Your last cumulative delta was minus 566. Your current delta is 672. So if you add, subtract, that's exactly the same thing mathematically when you have a plus and a minus. Your net value for cumulative delta right now is a positive 106. But your absolute delta is climbing. All the time you're going to be watching Jigsaw. Oh, my system just came off with a sell right there at 76.50. Now that's always the rub on these. It gives you a good entry point, but considering this is a Renko bar and that you might have some back ticking, depending on the momentum of the market, I might wait a minute or so and see where things are going. But typically, if it's moving this way, the delta is essentially increasing, and you see that you have on the Jigsaw Dome, you've got more sellers than buyers. And at this point, this is where I always clear it because it's in a trade. Let's just make an assumption that I'm in there at 76.50 on the ES. So what am I looking for now? Now I'm looking for what's going to happen on um, on the dome, and I'm going to be looking at the trades that are going off primarily because I don't want to see if I see five or 1,000 coming in on the buy side, and this ratio is on the split volume is getting way out of whack against me. You're going to be out of there in a heartbeat. Okay, so but right now, where price is, and Jigsaw Dome is screwing up again. I can't help it. I keep clearing this. This is what I do. And I do that because my sense of where the market is better. I'll put that on one time. When I see the real values coming in, okay, and see if you if you look at the sell side here, you can clearly see that the sellers are in control and they're marching down. If you look if you look at the offers, you see thousands up there. You see them adding here. You see them taking off on the buy side. Now, who knows how far it's going to go? Anything can happen. Um, uh, on the um, on the footprint chart, you had a heavy delta, negative delta here. Um, and sometimes actually that can indicate the end of a move for some strange reason. I guess traders, I don't know what the hell they're doing, but I've observed that once in a while you have a very heavy negative delta on the downside that the next few bars is going to be turning up. In this case, it didn't do that, but I have observed that. Most of this is black magic anyway. You don't know what's going on. So anyway, I have profit targets set here at 2 points on the ES. So we'll see if that hits. Right now, everything is supporting my trade. That's what I'm looking for here, and I'm sure that's what your trader in your room, Lucent, whatever his name is is using the footprint and the delta for. The delta now is really critical because if the market's going to turn around, if this is a bottom or, some huge buyer is going to come in and spike it up and ramp it up, you're going to see that immediately on the delta. You're going to see it immediately here. So that's the value of this stuff. The chart doesn't mean anything. I just use that for, a frame of reference that gives me, a possible entry. But it's all about this that actually supports the trade. So I'm going to clear this one out again. I want to see where it's going. You still have sellers here. This could be a few people taking profit, who knows. But you only have 170, then you had 5, then you had 3, but this is remaining fairly steady on the offers. And you can see this is the volume profile. It's the same thing that's over on the left that I have covered up. But it's essentially the same thing. You can see the volume nodes. The high volume node in this area actually is at 74.25. And remembering what we were talking about before of how you can sometimes see support and resistance, where the support is. Right now, in this setup, this is just going down. You don't have any level here on the dome that you can say definitively really has a support level, because the buyers are not there. They're just, it's just average trading, and the sellers are selling, and they're not huge numbers, but they are selling. So you have to assume that you're going down and there's nothing to tell you to get out of the trade yet. That one hit its profit target there. And so going back, looking at where we're at on the footprint chart, you still have sellers. You still have some sellers. You have some buyers right here. Might pause a little bit, maybe retrace. Who knows? Um, but the numbers are still in your favor for a downward move. So if you were really paying attention here and you wanted to pull this down, maybe increase your profit target, you could probably do that, because although you had 800 come in here, on you still have a negative delta, and you don't see that the buyers are running. Like I said before, if you see them running, that means that these numbers are gaining momentum, gaining acceleration at a faster rate than the other side. Then you have to start paying attention to that. But when this came to 1,000, this one went to 2,000, back forth, back forth, back forth. Now this is the next thing to watch. And if you look over here on your jigsaw dome, that one just cleared out, okay? But you're still on the sell side, and you still have sellers here. This ratio is still almost about 2 to 1, which is okay. It might slow up here a little bit. Maybe people are taking profit. And this is where the high volume nodes come in handy. The big high volume node is down here at 74.25, but there's another one right here, right where it is now. We're just above it at 2375. So, the volume kind of sticks around there, and then it's going to break one side or the other. And you can usually tell just by watching these numbers. Here again, you have that same setup where you have very few buyers up here, 229 here, and 31.44 right there. So if you were sitting in a trade, unless this buy side started to really run, you would probably stick it out. This is the number that counts on the buy side at this top one here. This is the one that if you see that overtake this bottom one. So right there it did. Okay, there you're up at 7. Now you're up at 9. Now it ticked up a tick. Okay, the relative volume is not that big, but it is retracing. Okay, is it a reversal? Who knows? You have to wait and see. You had 2271 go off here on the buy side, and this ratio changed slightly. So it's a point to watch, but the relative delta is still weak. If this turns out to be up in the thousands and it starts running, well then you know it's probably a reversal, or at least a deep retracement. So I'm going to speed this up somewhat, and then you can just see more or less what it looks like. Now you see now that's exactly what happened here. The sellers tried to come in. They couldn't overwhelm. I'm sorry. The buyers tried to come in here. They couldn't overwhelm the sellers. The next bar opened down. Actually opened down a tick. And here, if you look on the dome, you see that now where you had a couple of thousand up here that bought. The sellers are back in control here. You still have this 40 on the split volume. You still have 4,500 here, and I would expect that if it's going to continue down, that you're going to see this number start rising as it passes through those levels. Once it exceeds that 4,600 on this side, which is just about to do right here, and starts moving and it starts running, then you have somewhat of a good feel for maybe it's going to go. And so the value of this is that you see this moving in real time and you don't really have a lot of guesswork involved. You're not going to say, well, if it does this, I'm going to do that. If it does this, I'm going to do the other thing. No, you're looking at it in real time and your decision making is in real time. So, I mean, this is the reality of what's happening in the market right now. And now you notice that the delta did become positive, but notice that your ratio is still negative. Okay, so you're not turning around right yet. You know, if somebody came in here and with 1,000 or 2,000, maybe at 75-25, then you might say, yeah, maybe this is the point. But when you look over here again, you still see some negativity. The buy side is up at 66, but the sell side also went up to 51. So they're kind of it's kind of a battle zone here between the two. So if I was actually in this trade, the first thing I'd be looking at is this delta. Number two, I'd be looking here to see if there's any sellers coming in and how it responded. How did the market respond when it hit that 875? Well, it didn't care. It just kept going down. So that tells you something. So, and these are just the type of decisions that if you do, like I said, if you do this over and over in market replay, pick out your probable entry points, go back over at market replay, um, and watch the numbers and see what pattern develops for the type of trade that you want to take. So everybody takes a different type of trade. Now, if I was on the ZB now, let's see how my chart on the ZB looks. Let's see if I was trading the ZB at this point, where would I be? Let's see. Let's turn that on for a minute, see what it looks like. My ZB starts at 4 a.m., usually at 3 a.m., so you'll see a lot of extra trades. And the ratio that I work on for profit target and stop loss is 6 to 8 on this type of a trade. And of course, we'd be looking long anyway, so let's see how it would have recorded. Okay, I would have, actually, I would have been in my usual early morning trade right here on the buy side. And my footprint chart would have looked like, did I bring that up? Yeah, there it is. Okay, this would be my footprint chart. My trade would have executed somewhere around here. And here's a classic setup that I was talking about again on the ratio. There is a bottom. Now, we're not going back over the platform because I didn't rewind the replay, but you can see it very clearly on the footprint because now you had this all coming down. You had these ratios, it's moving down, moving down, moving down. Next bar down, and don't forget the bonds trade a little bit differently than the ES. They're slower. You have 171 versus 19. Okay, your delta took a massive upswing here. You went from minus 13 to minus 4. That would be a plus approximate 9. Okay, here you turn positive, so you have about a plus 500 here. And if you were plus 500 there and now you're up at 900, that means you had about 1,000 that just came in between here and there. Okay, now you would have seen that type of price action here, if we were doing that, the whole thing in replay. But notice how, you sometimes you can really see that bottom, okay? And yeah, it could be a retracement too, you don't know. But the next bar is a pretty high delta, and you're moving right along. So where is the spot that you're going to get in the trade? Well, of course, I'm using that algorithm that I wrote. It's nothing magic, like I told you. It's just an ordinary indicator that I wrote just to give me an entry point. There's no magic here, nothing, no secret sauce. There and So I like to use that because I know how it's written. I know how the algorithm is written and what it's looking for, and so that's all there is to that. But the confirmation, regardless what that algorithm says, regardless where it triggers, the final decision is always off the footprint and off the jigsaw dome. That's it. If this is way off, if this ratio was different, and I'd say, dump it until it gets right. Now it could get right up here. I mean, that happens. But now, as it turned out, and this is a very typical pattern that you'll see in the bonds anyway, that it starts off, you're up, you have some sellers up here, more here, and then it picks up and it takes off. That's just the way the bonds work. You see that pattern all the time. You'll see a deep negative delta, and just from experience, I know that for some reason they must be tick scalpers. It's probably John Grady scalping around there. He got long and then he's taken everything off. So just by experience and knowing the behavior of how the price works at that time of day, you can remain in that trade and maybe get a few extra ticks, and then moving down the line here with the bonds, okay. You see, you have your positive ratios here all the way up. You have 561 versus 106, 281 versus 35, on and on and on, until you get here at 640, all right? And you have your first negative ratio and a deeper delta. Your next bar is the same thing, and you have the same thing right here. Okay, so you got a couple of bars there that are telling you that either you're going to have a retracement or you're going to have a reversal. The size of these numbers will really tell, especially in the bonds, because you can see very easily in the bonds. When you have big big people, big buyers, big sellers coming in, they show up and they show up really hard, which is, truthfully, it's an advantage because you can feel that, you can see that big number, and say, I'm going. If I was long, I'm out of that trade. I might even be looking for a short then because you saw some big buyers, big sellers coming in. So where is the footprint on that? I need I'm looking for the dome on the ZB. Hmm. Sometimes it'll just disappear in these on the replay. Must be on the chart. Yeah, there it is. Well, like I said, it just disappears once in a while. It just it's the technology. It has nothing to do with the market. Here again, the graphics is screwing up. Yeah, I'm not even going to bother with that because it got all screwed up. But you can see essentially that the methodology is the same as the ES that I use. the rationale to get in the trade, the rationale to get out of the trade, whether to stay in, dump out, whatever. The line of thinking remains exactly the same, and you might have news days or whatever, but typically when you have a move like this, like you did on this day on Tuesday, and actually I remember Tuesday because what happened here is that in the bonds, normally I don't will not trade with the NYSE open on the bonds. I usually wait a little bit after, and at this point here, it doesn't look like much. There was a signal, but it got very choppy in here, and I remember I was in and out twice on this because it was very uncertain as to whether it was going to hold. As it turned out, I think it did hold. I forget now. But in some of these cases, you can use those correlations, like correlation with the ES. But again, I've been over that so many times and trying to nail it, and I just it's just kind of a waste of time. I couldn't really pinpoint any one particular setup or pattern that said, yeah, that the correlation looked good. I couldn't. So on the bigger time frame, you can analyze a market. And that's how the pairs people do it. Like just like that carry trade. They're using the larger time frames in the market, and that's good to know. But on intraday trading, I think the most important thing that you need to know is how where is this market going, and you can only see that by actually watching the real time trades that go off. Let me try to bring that up again. Yeah, it's not recording. Okay, so the only way you can see that is by the real trades that are going off. Um, Looking at the numbers here, as we were on the ES, looking at the snapshot. When you have a real move on the snapshot, this really becomes very significant, and the reason is because those are they're not spoof orders, and they're not it's not like these guys here, these buyers, maybe they just really want to sell and it looks like they're adding a load up here, but you're short over here. And then the minute that the price hits, you see the whole thing go upside down and they're selling, and anyone who bought over here is getting killed. Okay, now that happens all the time. If you, especially if you get used to watching this, you learn that to be wary of that type of thing. But on the other hand, on a day when you really say the market is really tanking, and those are real numbers, okay, you're going to see them up in the bonds. You see these on the 10-year. I mean, these are up in the tens of thousands, okay, and what they're adding and adding, they just keep adding and adding. I mean, and this side is just for nothing. So on those days, it's great. If you catch a good entry point, and I know they talk about trade location, and oh, that's one other thing I should show you actually, because the first thing I do in the day, of course, is I am looking at market profile, because that's it. That's going to tell you where you are in space before the market actually opens. So if I was looking at the ES, I use 15-minute charts on the bonds, but 30-minute is better on the ES. So let's do 30 days on that. This is one of the downsides of Ninja. Its functionality and the way they have things organized is not that great. But the one the one valuable thing on Ninja which you probably know already, is that ATM. I can set up my all my strategies are written already in this dynamic superdome. So if I'm trading the ZB here, and I have all my strategies written right here. So if I'm doing a 4 ticker, it comes up. I'm trading 3 lots, 4 and 4. I have it set up for different market situations. Okay. Here I have a 5 lot scaled. Okay. If I think that we might be taken off and it's easier for me to do that. So with one click, I'm in there on 5 lots and I'm scaling out this way. The stop is already fixed. Everything's there. I don't have to do anything. I could change it, of course, but I could just sit there and wait for it to execute or get stopped or whatever. And here is a classic 2 tick scalp thing, which this is pretty hard to do, but it is doable if you follow John Grady's methodology. So anyway, on the 30-minute chart here, I'm going to reduce this to 10 days so that it loads faster. Can't see. Okay, so, and this is the ES, so I'm going to put in my template is set for the bond, so I have to change this. We're going to make the TPO at, not market balance, what am I doing? I'm going to make the TPO at 6:30, which is 9:30 or 8:30 your time. Okay. And then I also put in the typical support resistance and all of that. Now on the ZB, the ES doesn't do this very often because because you have those algo programs firing off so often. But on the ZB, early in the morning, the traders are they're trading this profile. In fact, I actually should just show you what it looks like because some of those are the best trades that you can have. You can do it all in the morning and then. But they're all scalps. They're not. These are not long-term trades. They're all scalps, and they're all off the market profile. And the TPO is set to begin at the opening at would be about 2:30 in the afternoon my time. Okay. Now on this day here, we it broke out because you're already past 7 o'clock and whatever. But during this time frame, if you looked back, I mean, here the day before, you could see that. Here's a good day right here. This is, but the problem with this chart is that the VAH and the VAL have already migrated, so you really are not seeing in real time what this looked like. Probably the way this was, this would have been the range, and you can sell off that VAH and buy off that VAL, and you can scalp that pretty well. And once it starts going, actually, for it to go, what you call in the S&P and the E-mini the 80% trade. This is like 100% trade, because when it starts trading like this, it can zigzag between those levels, a couple of times. You can't see it, like I said, you can't see it right now because time has already passed and these levels have migrated. But that's a very typical type of trade, and you can see even here today that as it came down here, it was bouncing. I'm sure that the VAL was right around here somewhere back in time there, and traders were trading. There they are. And then when it starts to go up here, when you see it break, beyond uh, one of these levels here, you can trade it to the other side because it eventually it always goes there for some reason. So you know that somebody's doing it. I don't know who, but I'm happy to trade along with them. Now, of course, you had a lot of momentum on this upside, and you're also after 7 o'clock or after 10 o'clock New York time. So, these are serious moves. Those scalp moves generally happen before the NYSE opens and before the bond market. Bond market open doesn't really mean much. I mean, unless there's news at 5:30 or 8:30 New York time, it really doesn't mean too much. Nobody cares. It's just a number. But during that time frame, early in the morning, you can get some good scalps. They're actually pretty easy because you don't have to set stop loss. If you're just trading right off that dome. Actually, that's what you're doing. You're trading off the dome, and you'll see it. You'll see the, as I call it, the line in the sand. It'll be right there. I mean, it's just very graphic. So anyway, that's about it. Um, the the Your guy went all the way down to I think on the ES. Let me see where ES. Here's the 5 minute chart. I'm just going to take this off here. It, that's Ninja. I wish somebody could write a really good platform. Um, yeah, so you see where we are here. This actually is about, this would be around 11 o'clock New York time. Your guy actually took along someplace in here as the market moved along, but he scaled out all the way down, and he scaled out well. I read the transcript. He looked like he was. I mean, I don't know if the guy's trading 250 lots here and 500 on gold and 700 on oil and all of that. I Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why he would even be here, you know, working that, because and those sizes, I think that you really have to monitor your fills. You're not going to fill 250 at once. You're not going to fill 500 on gold at once. You have to monitor that, because if you have stuff left there on the table, you've got to pay attention, and what you have left there, you might have to just take out at market or something. So that's why I'm just a little skeptical. But the way the guy did it live, I can't say anything negative about his comments, because he made some comments which were extremely helpful, I thought. One of them was looking at the session delta at the end of the day and comparing it to the open delta and where you are in the market relative to that session closing delta. And I thought that was a very astute observation, because that delta at the end of the day, and that of course would be the cumulative delta, not the absolute delta of the last bar. Um, that can tell that could really tell you something. And then if you, I always study the overnight trading activity, especially in the bonds, because if something's going on in Europe, like the elections or Draghi speaks, or the bonds will move, and it's important to know where they were in space overnight. The ES is not always so important, but the bonds can be very important. So that end of the day session delta is something I set up, made a note of, and I'm going to be looking at that too. And he made a couple of other comments about scaling out and his targets, which I thought were good. So I don't know where the guy is from. Not going to say any more about that, but it seemed, I don't know. I'm not saying any more. So that's about it. If you have any questions on the footprint, your footprint is doing the same thing. How it calculates and comes up with its numbers, I don't know. Don't forget that different data feeds are going to spit out different numbers. But as I mentioned to you yesterday when we chatted about it, the the relative ratio of these numbers is what's important. Okay, your number, uh, just to give a hypothetical situation, if the number here was minus 12, okay, what would you expect this number to be? Okay, it would be about almost minus 4,000. It's the relative ratio between the two. Okay, and here, if you had minus 1951 and you have a plus 563 here, so what happened? You had 2000, you had 2400 that traded between here and there. Okay, so whether your number is 1900 or it's 2400 or whatever, it's the relative ratio between these bars that's really important. And the only way you can validate that that your relative ratios are the same, is by comparing it to someone else. You know, for instance, if you set up this is the bid and ask ladder on this particular footprint, and if your ratios were so far off, I'd have to question what your platform is doing, and you'd have to ask Sierra how it works. I know how mine works, and I know how TradeStation works, but even when Moscow had his delta up, the numbers were different from mine, but the relative ratios were the same. So, but I hope you get a feel for, what the numbers mean and how they're calculated, because you were talking about cumulative delta, and if you're using cumulative delta for any kind of indicator, you have to know how the thing is calculated. So it's the previous bar plus minus the current bar, and that's it. But whether that number is going up and down, if it means something to you, then that's what you have to pay attention to. So, so I'm going to end this here. Hope you got something out of it.